I read 4 physical books in the month of September, plus 3 more on my Kindle. So let's talk about the 7 books that I read last month and also pick my October TBR for 2025 together. I always love filming these videos, but I also always tend to ramble on about each book for way too long. So my goal for this video is to talk about each book for like 2 minutes at a time each, okay? Let's hope that we can do that so it doesn't take like half an hour to talk about 7 books. But as always, I love to go through my statistics first and talk about like the page count stuff that I got over the past month, which by the way, I track all of my statistics on Storygraph, and I also track all the books that I read on Goodreads and Fable as well. So if you want to follow me on any of these platforms, they're all linked down below, and I will follow you back so we can be friends on these platforms. But Storygraph said that I read 7 books and 3,674 pages in the month of September. 14% of the books were over 500 pages, and the other 86% were between 300 and 499 pages. They were all fiction, as usual. My top genre was romance, followed by fantasy, dystopian, thriller, sci-fi, YA mystery, and contemporary. So kind of a range this month. I usually don't get like sci-fi in my wrap-ups. And then I read 57% on print or physical, and then I read 43% digital, which is a much higher ratio for me. Usually I read more books physically, at least in the past couple of months that's been the case, but apparently in September I was feeling a very Kindle mood. And lastly, my average star rating out of the 7 books that I read was a 3.71. We have it ranging from a 5-star to a 2-star this month. So very wide range of books. And yeah, let's get into each one and what I rated them. So I actually started out September filming a 24-hour reading vlog. If you guys saw that video on my channel a couple weeks ago, I did 12 hours over 2 days. So I finished it on September 1st. And while finishing, I read 2 books that I'd finished literally the first day of September. So starting off the month with a lot of progress already made. The first book that I finished is right here. I actually, crazy, did a reread of Divergent this month. Don't ask me why. I was just really in the mood to pick up this book again. If you live under a rock and do not know what Divergent is, this follows our main character Tris, who lives in this dystopian world where when you turn 16, you have to choose between 5 different factions. Let's see if I can remember. It's Abnegation, Dauntless, Erudite, Candor, and Amity. I think those are the 5 ones. But anyway, it's like based on your characteristics, your personality, you choose which factor or faction, I guess, you live in for the rest of your life. And she grew up in Abnegation, which is like the very selfless faction, but she decides to choose Dauntless whenever she actually goes through the test. But the test results came back inconclusive. They were like, you are actually divergent, which is what you're not supposed to be. But they're like, you could fit into a lot of different categories. So basically just pick your favorite. So she chooses Dauntless, and the entire book is spent with her going to Dauntless, learning how to fight, learning how to defend herself, learning how to accomplish her fears. And then they also start to uncover secrets about like what's happening with the dystopia and like underlying things that are occurring. And as someone who's read the entire trilogy when I was in like middle school, high school, like I know that the rest of the series involves a lot more political dismembering and restructuring the government system of this dystopian world. But I think book 1 is really just dipping your toes in. There is not much of that heavy dystopia stuff. It's just a lot more like, hey, we're fighting, we're learning how to accomplish fears and stuff like that. And I think that specifically the fear part of this book is what really stands out to me. Is like, this is why it became so interesting, because it's a really cool concept. Basically in Dauntless, they give you this like serum that you take, and it puts you in this like fearscape, this like dream landscape where you have to conquer your biggest fears. So, like if you are claustrophobic, it puts you in small spaces, or if you're afraid of heights, it puts you like on the top of a building, and you're not actually there, but you feel like you're there. And the point is you have to overcome these fears or prove to yourself that they're not real, one of the two, to escape the fearscape, if that makes sense. So it's a really interesting concept. I liked rereading about that. It is very YA, it is very middle school. It was really a random book for me to pick out, but I, for some reason, really wanted to read it. So, you know, I'm a mood reader at heart. I was going to do it, and I gave this book 3.5 stars. Because is it a perfect book? No. Does it read very young? Does Tris read kind of annoying sometimes? Yeah, it does. It also had some like questionably fat-phobic stuff happening in this that I really didn't love. Kind of a sign of the times. This was written like a decade ago. But I will also just say that like this book walked so other dystopian books could run. Like this is the same era as Hunger Games, right? Like Hunger Games is definitely better than this, don't get me wrong, but I'm saying like incredible works of literature that are in the dystopian category were so popular in this time, and they really did start a wave of dystopian books coming out, and in decades in the future we will still remember books like this because of the time that they were released in. So it's iconic for that reason. 3.5 stars. Definitely a weird one for me to pick up, but I enjoyed it. The next book that I picked up, I actually read on my Kindle, also during that 24-hour reading challenge, and this was Us Dark Few by, oh, is it Alexis something? Okay, it is Alexis Patton. I was kind of right. So basically, this book is a YA dystopian book that I've seen quotes on TikTok all the time, so I really wanted to pick it up, and I feel like a really quick read because it's like 320 pages, so it's really short and sweet to finish out my 24-hour reading challenge. Well, this book shocked me because I ended up giving this book 4.5 stars. I was like, I did not expect that at all. Basically, we follow our main character in this book whose name is oh, it's Kalani. I think it's Kalani. Yes, it is. I was right. So she is a prisoner in this like underground prison in this dystopian world. And by the way, 2 sci-fi / dystopian books back to back in 1 month is crazy for me. I am usually not a dystopian / sci-fi reader. It's like a one and done kind of thing. But for some reason that day I was really feeling the vibes. Anyway, but she is in a prison. She is being convicted for stealing literature, stealing a book. And as we all know, in dystopians, they don't want you to read books. So the entire story, she is like being reduced from a human to a prisoner number. I think it's like 431 or something like that. And she is having to learn how to defend herself and to live in these terrible conditions where you basically are just forced to do labor all day. And then you get like terrible scraps for meals. And then you go to a fighting ring and watch people fight for an hour. And then you go back to your cell and sleep. Like it's, you know, a cycle of just, But she meets this guy. Actually, it's not just this guy. It's the guard, the prison guard. His name is Takeshi. I really liked his name. I don't want to like mispronounce it. Okay, it's Takeshi with a K. And he definitely is wary of her, but they have an enemies to lovers romance and it's just so nice. It is YA, so it's not like spicy or anything, but it is like a nice little burn throughout the entire book. I really like his character. I like that together they are trying to uncover, very similar to Divergent, like things with the government, things being hidden from them, secrets that they need to be revealed, and truths about the society, because in the society, it's like post-radioactive Earth. So the prison is underground. I think all the cities, in fact, are underground. There's only one city, I think it's called Genesis, that is above ground. It's basically just put in this like protective bubble, I suppose, to seal it away from the radioactive energy that's all across the rest of the Earth. But they're being told their entire life they can't leave, they can't see the sun unless they're rich and can live in Genesis because of the radioactive energy. And it is revealed towards the end of this book that maybe there are some lies being told, and what can we actually find out about this reality. So not only did I really enjoy the story, I thought it was really engaging and really fun. I also loved the romance. And speaking of the romance, the yearning in this book was top tier. There were some lines that Takeshi said about Kalani that I was like, I had to highlight it on my Kindle. I was like, this is so good. And for a YA book, I was like grinning. So I do need to pick up the sequel immediately because I really don't know what happens with their little romance story. But what really pushed this over like the 4-star mark and gave it a 4.5 star for me was the fact that this was like inciting genuine fear inside of me, because I think about all the stuff that our actual world, like Earth, is dealing with, like climate change and pollution and all this stuff. And also just the way that our lovely governments are going. And I'm just like, this book is not at all far-fetched. It is a dystopian, but it's using problems that could very easily happen to us, maybe within my generation, to be honest, if we don't actually make moves to fix our countries and fix our environment, stuff like that. So it was like really creepy and kind of a harder read, to be honest, because it did incite a little bit of fear inside of me. And any book that can do that, I think it's a very well-written book. So I really do recommend this a lot. And again, I really need to pick up the sequel. I think it's a trilogy, but only 2 books are out so far. So one more book and I'll be caught up. And I think my sister and I are gonna bunny read the next one. If she ever picks up book 1, then we can actually read that one together. So Audrey, if you're watching this, I'm waiting on you, girl. Okay, so the next book that I read, speaking of finishing series, was The Night Prince by Lauren Powell Freeman. I always mess up that name so much. This is the 2nd book in the Wolf King duology. Actually, it's a trilogy as well, now that I mention it, but I don't know if I'm actually gonna read book 3. We'll have to see when it comes out, because spoiler alert, I gave this book 3 stars. It was honestly so annoying. Okay, so if you don't know, The Wolf King, book 1, is one that I read at the end of August. This was a very quick fantasy romance about a human girl who gets taken by a wolf shifter, a werewolf, take it to the Wolf Society, kind of integrates with them. The guy's name is Callum, her name is Aurora, there's also a different guy named Blake, and there is a love triangle with the 3 of them. And basically it's like classic fantasy romance, you know, it's not a plot that we haven't seen before, but it was so addicting and so enjoyable, and I ate it up so fast. So I gave it book 4 stars. It was so good. But unfortunately, although I've seen everybody who's read this series love book 2, so I was really excited to get into it, I read book 2 and I was very disappointed. I think there are a couple factors going into this. Number one, I'm gonna say this without any spoilers as much as possible. Basically, there's a love interest in book 1. There are 2, right? But one of them is like the crowd favorite because it's like the classic romantic love interest, you know? And I like him, but I also like the other guy, you know? So I like both of them, but I don't love either of them. And so book 2 dives into the other half of the love triangle that we see from book 1 a little more, which makes sense. Usually love triangles flip back and forth between different books. That's not original. And personally, I think everyone's eating up the crumbs of this other love interest that I personally just wasn't obsessing over that much. And then I think the other thing is I listened to this book with audio. I mean, I had it on my Kindle and I read a teeny bit on my Kindle, but most of this was audiobooked for me. And it got to the point where I was just so annoyed with the way that the audiobook was being told. Like, I genuinely think that if you're reading a book and the audiobook is bad, it will completely ruin your experience. And the other way is true too. If a book is bad and you love the audio version, it can completely fix your reading experience. But in this case, especially the person that voiced Aurora was so annoying because she was so overly expressive. Like, I won't even lie, she would say things and the way that she would say them sound like she was moaning. Like, it was so annoying to listen to. Let's just say that she was like sleeping and having a bad dream, for example. The voice actor would be like, oh, she was just writhing in pain. And I'm like, I can't do this. I can't do this kind of dramatics. Like, please do me a favor and shut up. It was an audiobook, but I was like, please shut up. And then I got to the end of the book and not only was the plot like very predictable, it didn't go anywhere that I wasn't expecting. I honestly was getting like over the excitement from book 1. And then towards the end, it got to the point where, again, not spoiling what happened specifically, but I was like, why does everyone care this much about Aurora? Aurora being the main character. I'm like, every person is obsessing over her. The good guys, the bad guys, for whatever reason, they all want her, either like with them romantically or with them politically, like something, you know? And I'm like, I've been in this girl's head for 2 books now. I don't get I don't get it. Like, what's so special about her? No disrespect, but like, she's boring. And is that mean? Yeah, it is mean, and I'm sorry, but it is my true honest reaction. So I had to give this book 3 stars. I was like, it's not a bad book by any means, but it just really didn't work for me. I got annoyed by the audiobook and I just didn't get it. Like, why are they all this obsessed with her, you know? But at the same time, I know people who absolutely love this series and gave both books 5 stars, ate it up. Like, it just didn't work for me personally, but don't take that as like a scathing review for everybody's opinion. I think everyone has a different view on this little duology. I keep saying duology, it is a trilogy. And again, I'm not quite sure if I'm gonna read book 3 or not. I'll have to see. It's not out yet, so I do have time to wait. I just like don't know if I want to torture myself with book 3 when I just don't care about the characters at all. That's that. Moving on to the next book that I read this month, which was, I'm so excited about this one. It was Unwanted by Mia Sheridan. I bought this book this month. I read it pretty immediately, which is a sign that I'm really interested in a book because usually I buy a book and it sits on my TBR shelf for months, if not years. This one I bought and read within like the exact same week and it was such a good time. So this is a very interesting book because I've never heard anybody talk about it before, like ever. So Mia Sheridan is famous for her book Archer's Voice, which I have read. I gave it 3 stars like a couple years ago, but this one I really liked a lot more. So the story starts with the prologue where this little boy wakes up and I think he was like drugged or something, and he's all of a sudden standing on the edge of a cliff with 3 other children, and there's this like evil man. He's obviously like, I don't know, 8 years old, so he's like very confused. He doesn't know what's happening, and the guy basically pushes all the children off of the cliff, literally like page 3, and you're like, oh my goodness. And so this guy is like toppling to his death essentially. He tries to grab a branch and catch himself. He doesn't actually die, but it's like a miracle, to be honest, that he survives. And then he spends the next like 15 years of his life living in the woods because he is in this secluded place. Nobody can find him. No one's really looking for him, and he doesn't know how to survive. He's literally an 8-year-old child, but like he makes friends with wolf packs and he learns how to build fires and kill for food and stuff like that. And he just survives in the woods. And so whenever we see him in present day, there is this guy that lives in this weird house in the middle of the woods that everyone didn't know about, but they're like, who is this weirdo from the forest, right? Then the other point of view is Harper. Harper is I want to say she's like a nature explorer slash tour guide for like the forest and stuff because they live in this very secluded town up in the foresty mountains in, I don't know, Wisconsin or Montana or something like that, like a very northern state. And she is helping this agent slash detective with a murder mystery. There have been 2 very weird murders in this town. They're trying to figure out what happened, and both the murders were done by a bow and arrow, and everyone's like, that is very weird. Not only are bow and arrows not very much used anymore, they were both deadly shots through the chest, which you have to be incredibly incredibly strong to shoot like that, right? So everyone's like, what's happening? And then Mark, the agent, comes across this person in the woods with a bow on his back, takes him into the police station, and turns out it is the guy in the woods, right? It's a mix between a romance, which I really, really loved, and also a mystery. And there's just all this eerie underlying, like, what is going on with the history behind this guy, like what happened in his past, why on earth was he pushed off the cliff at the age of 8? Like, no one knows why. He actually doesn't know why either, even though it happened to him, because either his memory is blocked or he was just too young to remember. Like, it's all very confusing to everyone. So unraveling those layers was really interesting. And also there was such a sweet, sweet romance between Harper and Jack. And I love the way that she listens and sees him more than anyone else has seen him in his life. Like, she understands him, they can relate. There are a lot of issues that she goes through that he helps her with and vice versa. And it's just really emotional and beautiful. And I really, really loved this. So yeah, I gave this 4 stars. The only reason that it wasn't like a 4.5, almost 5 stars to be honest, because I really was inhaling this book whenever I read it, was the fact that the romance got a teeny bit cringy towards the end. And I think the same happened with Archer's voice that I didn't really love, but I let it slide more in this one because the mystery was really, really intriguing to me. But that being said, like, although I say that, I really did love this couple and I love their story and I love their happy ending, and it was just such a good book. I have never seen anyone talk about this book before. So if you have not heard of this, but it sounds up your alley, like the feral man trope really works for me. So maybe it'll work for you. And I really do recommend it. So this is your sign to pick it up. The next book that I read this month, I actually am in the process of making a vlog for this one. I mean, I already read the book, but the vlog has more books in it. So you will see that vlog coming hopefully later in October. But this is a book that has been on my TBR shelf for about 2 years now. I mean, like my digital TBR shelf. And then I got it physically a couple of months ago and I still have been putting it off for the longest time. So finally, I actually read House of Flame and Shadow by Sarah J. Maas. This is the 3rd book in the Crescent City series. What I thought was finishing the trilogy, turns out there's actually a contract signed for book 4, but that hasn't been announced at all. So I'm not quite sure if she's gonna continue it or what she's gonna do with that, but this is the end of what's published so far in her Crescent City series. And can I just tell you, this brick is 830 pages. 830 pages worth of content. I'm like, it was such an intimidating book because obviously, right? Obviously. And also Sarah J. Maas is one of my favorite authors or fantasy authors of all time. She wrote Throne of Glass, which is my favorite series of all time. And I was really nervous going into this because in my opinion, Crescent City, this series, it's really good, but it's my least favorite series by her out of everything that I've read. It goes Throne of Glass, Ekotar, and then Crescent City. And so book 1 in this series was a 5 stars, but book 2 was only a 4 star. And it was leading on a 3.5 until the ending, like plot twist brought it back up to a 4. So going into this book, I was really, really nervous on how she's going to tackle everything because this urban fantasy romance really has like so much going on. For example, Hunt is an angel. There's also shifters like werewolf shifters or viper shifters or dragon shifters, mermaids. There's fire sprites and angels and demons and asteri, which are like gods. There are a bunch of different types. There's also vampires, things like that. Like, there are a bunch of different types. Oh, fae, duh. Like again, bunch of different types of people in this book. There are a million characters. And by the time that you get to book 3, like we are seeing about 25 plus characters, different point of view. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, there are so many characters that we were talking about in these books. And also the plot in this one, I can't quite say what's happening, obviously, because it is book 3, but I will just say that occasionally book 2 made me question if Sarah had bitten off more than she could chew because there was just so much going on and not all of it was very intriguing to me. But when I went into this book, the first the first part in this book was so good. Favorite part of the entire book. It was so interesting. There was a really cool plot going on. There were some really good characters that we were seeing completely rewritten because there was one character in specific, if you know, you know, that in books 1 and 2 we absolutely despise. But in this book, we are seeing a complete like circle around. We actually are being told, hey, this character actually is blah, 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 blah. And they're doing blah, 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 blah. And this is why you actually should like them. And miraculously, Sarah changes all of our minds. Like we're all like, oh my gosh, I do love this person. And so it was like really cool to see that character development, to see the interesting plot at the beginning. Bryce specifically has a very interesting plot point at the beginning of this book because if you know how book 2 ends, book 3 starts right out with that plot twist and we're like, oh my gosh, this is insane to see these people again. I'm saying this so vaguely, but again, it's just like one of those things that if you know, you know, and if you don't, I do not want to spoil it for you. I will just say though, the second like 2 parts of this book though, after the first third, were definitely like 3.5, maybe 4-star level for me, because you can never really get bored because it gives you a plot twist and then you have to get to another point of view and then you cliffhanger from that, you go back to the first one. So it's very much on your feet to kind of plot, but at the same time, there was a lot of like researching and exploring caves and fighting and things like that personally for me was not my favorite. I much prefer like political scheming or romance or something like that. This was just a lot of like, let's find more information about this world that at one point it just became a little bit too much for me. So anyway, all that to say, it was still a really good book. I liked this more than book 2 in the series, and I think that it was a very nice tied up bow, finishing out all these characters' like perspectives and stuff, which is why I'm very curious as to why I saw that there is a contract for book 4, because I'm like, book 3 seems to end things very, very nicely. I'm very confused, but at the same time, I'm glad that I finished what's out of this trilogy so far, because it means that there's only one book ever that Sarah J. Maas has ever published that I have not read, and that is Tower of Dawn. And I will read it eventually, don't get me wrong, but I literally have read her entire backlist. Every single thing that she's published besides that book, I have consumed. So honestly, if there's ever a SJM fan, it's me. OG fan right here. 4 stars for House of Flame and Shadow. Do I recommend it? Yes, but it is one that I think you should read Ekotar first, and probably Throne of Glass first as well before you pick this up. The next book that I read this month was actually a reread for me, and unfortunately, or fortunately I guess, I actually lent this book to my friend a couple days ago because I loved it so much and I wanted her to read it. So I don't have the physical copy with me right now, but I will just hold up the sequel for a second because I read it and I had to buy book 2 immediately. So I read For the Wolf by Hannah Witten, but I did buy For the Throne, which is the sequel. I read this book for the first time last fall, and it was really just a right book, right time kind of moment for me, because this book is very controversial. So many people don't like it, not because it like handles dark or hard topics. It's controversial because people think it's really slow and boring. But personally for me, this book hit me last year at the perfect time. I ate it up so fast. It was so good. It was so good. And I gave it 5 stars. So this year I was like, I have so many books on my TBR that I should be reading instead, but truly deep down, all I want to do is read For the Wolf for the second time. So I did do a reread of this book, and that's why I bought the sequel so fast afterwards, because I was like, you know what? Last year I really debated on whether or not I wanted to read the sequel, but this year after my reread, I was like, yeah, absolutely I want to read the sequel. So I had to buy it. But anyway, that being said, For the Wolf is kind of a Red Riding Hood / Beauty and the Beast retelling. Our main character, Rhaenyra, who goes by Red, is the second daughter of this monarchy, and the first daughter is for the throne and the second daughter is for the wolf. And so basically, since she is the youngest of the 2 sisters, she is forced as a religious sacrifice to go and appease the monster in the woods, because they think that if you give a sacrifice to him every new generation with the second daughter, then he will release the kings that he trapped there, like, I don't know, centuries ago. So she kind of accepts her fate. She doesn't really want to go, but she is doing it for the protection of her sister, specifically because she thinks that she is kind of the problem. Anyway, she goes into the woods, and turns out the wolf is actually a really chill guy. He's not monstrous. He doesn't actually want to eat her. He doesn't want to kill her. He doesn't want to feast on her. He actually wants her to go back to where she came from, but she's like, no, I have to stay for the safety of other people. So he's like, you know what? Fine, make yourself at home and leave me alone. He's grumpy, he's really lanky and tall and moody, but he's also like hot, and he has a really sweet heart, and he definitely enemies to lovers this situation. I'm using enemies to lovers as like a verb, not a descriptor in this case. That's hilarious. But it also is just the perfect little romance between the 2 of them, because she is so problem solving, determined to save her sister. She's determined to figure out the issue, and he is so self-sacrificing and so closed off to literally everybody. But if you get under his skin, you will literally be in his protection forever. His name is Aemon, by the way, and her name is Red. And so they have a really sweet little romance. And I just love the yearning in this book. It is so good. Again, they both have like a hero complex, so they're always like trying to sacrifice themselves for each other. And it's just such a beautiful story, but it also is perfect for autumn, because the vibes in this are 100% old rotted castle in the woods, like with vines crawling up the walls, and old dusty libraries and tea and candles. And then and the woods that the wolf lives in is called the wilder wood, and the wilder wood is almost like a sentient being in itself. If you are embedded with the wilder wood, if it can taste your blood, then you are almost like claimed by it, and it like pulls the magic out of you. So for example, you either have to bleed and like cut yourself and bleed on the tree, or you have to give your magic, but as you give your magic, the wilder wood takes more of you. So bark will start growing on your arms, or like you'll start growing horns or something like that. Your eyes will turn green. And so it's just very curious how like the earthy magic, it's so dark and sentient and eerie, and it's really just fully atmospheric, because not only is the magic like autumnal in its system, it also just gives you those creepy, eerie, controlled by an other force like vibes, you know? And it really is just perfect. Is the plot a little slow? Maybe, but do I love it anyway? Yeah, because the atmosphere, the yearning, it just hit every single box for me. And so this was a reread, but again, it was 5 stars. And I don't know what to say. I really don't, because it just works for me. And I really think it could work for a lot of people if they give it a shot. Sequel will be read very, very shortly. I should be getting to this in the next couple of months, hopefully, because I think it would just be perfect to finish out the duology also in the fall season. So yeah, if you haven't read this book before, do me a favor and pick it up. It's so worth your time. It's so good. And the last book that I read in September, I actually DNF'd. We ended on kind of a sour note. I will say that I have been reading a different book. It's currently the last day of September, by the way. It's currently the 30th. I have been reading a different book for the past couple of days, but I unfortunately haven't finished it yet. So you will see that book in my October wrap up. Just as a little bit of a spoiler, it is already incredible. I do not see how it could not be a 5 star. So we're not really ending the month on a sour note, but unfortunately the last book that I finished in September was a disappointment for me. And that book was Chasing the Wild by, what is the author's name? Elliot Rose. Now I have not heard raving reviews about this book at all. Okay, I didn't go into this expecting it to be a 5 star, but I went into it wanting really spicy romance fun time. You know, I was feeling the vibes a couple days ago and I was like, let me just pick up something that'll be quick, easy, and fun. I have the audiobook already. It was a free one that I had in my Libro FM library. The book is on KU, like it'll be an easy, quick read for me. Let me pick this up. So this book is about our main character, whose name I've already forgotten in the past like couple of days since I was reading this book. Her name is Layla and his name is Colt. And this is actually ex-boyfriend's dad trope, which I am a fan of. Do not get me wrong. Penelope Douglas's book, Birthday Girl, I ate up last summer. It was 4 stars. It was so good. The reason I DNF'd this was not because of that trope at all. I actually really want to read Wild Side by Elsie Silver, which is also ex-boyfriend's dad, okay? Something about the older men in these books, they always hit. They always hit. So I personally love that trope and I'm not going to stray away from it anytime in the future, but this specific instance of it did not work. The beginning of this book was so much fun. I loved the vibes. She is a vet and she needs work, but she gets stranded in this like really small town in the mountains in the snow season, and she was going to deliver some stuff at her ex-boyfriend's house. He had like left some of his boxes at her place, but turns out the guy that opens the door, who happens to be his dad, is a super hot, gruff cowboy who also just happened to be really nice and pay for her gas when she was downtown a couple hours earlier. And she's like, oh my gosh, hey, this is awkward. This is your son's stuff. Then she gets trapped in the snow and she has to live up there with them for the next couple of weeks. And then he decides to hire her because he needs a vet and she needs hours to get her certification. So he decides, hey, I'll hire you. It's all chill. As they're both like trying to ignore the underlying sexual tension that they both have for each other. Premise-wise, it's fantastic. It's delicious. It's messy. It's spicy. We all know what we're gonna happen here, but it's like in concept, such a good book. And so why things went wrong, I'm not entirely sure. Actually, I know why, but I was just like, really annoyed by it because I wanted this book to just hit all the boxes for me. Quick, easy romance, call it good. But unfortunately, we got to the 40% in this book and they were already banging. In fact, I think they were banging at like 33%, like a third of the way into this book, and we already have so much on page spice. And I'm like, okay, am I loving this? Sure. What are we gonna do for the next 200, 300 pages? What possibly are we gonna do? And it got to the point where I was like, okay, so it's just gonna be really, really spicy, and there is no slow burn buildup because they just kind of admitting their not their like romantic feelings, but their sexual feelings, they admitted like really, really early on in the book. And I was like, okay, so I don't know if I still care because I'm not invested in this story because they didn't drag it on for a long time to keep me invested. It was just like, hey, page 100, let's start banging. And I was like, no, could we not? And then as well, unfortunately, some of the spice did give me the ick a little bit. Like, I'm not really that particular with my spice, to be honest. I'm like a simple gal, you know, it doesn't have to be that specific for me to enjoy it. but like something about them, I don't know if it was the nicknames that he was calling her, the way that, I think it was the way that he was speaking to her, to be honest, or the way that he spoke about her body specifically, that I was like, come on, you are a 40-plus-year-old man. You're not a teenage boy who's like super horny. Like, please tell me you see more in her than just a hot body. Like, please, oh my gosh. And I just like couldn't understand if there was ever gonna be anything besides just sexual tension between them. Like, that's it. I'm not seeing the long term in this. And so I had to DNF it because I was like, I just don't care to read about them banging for the next 200 pages for no actual romantic tension and actual connection. I just didn't see it. And again, he was speaking about her in a way that was really gross and immature, in my opinion. Not in like a predatory way, but in a only seeing her for her body. And I was like, come on, man, you are 45, grow up, you know? Yeah, that's a quick one, but it was a no for me, had to DNF it. Gave it 2 stars. It wasn't like a god-awful book, but it just didn't work for me, and I don't want to pick up the rest of the series again. So that's that. That's my entire wrap up for September. I'm gonna go switch out these books with my TBR jar, so I'll be right back so we can pick our TBR for October. Okay, I won't lie, when I looked at the timestamp for our last little clip there, I was filming for 40 minutes straight. So will that be broken down to a 20-minute video? Plan failed, unfortunately. I am a yapper at heart. That's what y'all subscribe for, I guess. Which, by the way, if you're new here, you should subscribe. I have my TBR jar here, which we can pick my October TBR with, but I want to speak first about my September TBR from last month. And if you were here for that video, and if you saw the books that I read last month, I think you could already tell that I completely ditched my TBR. I think I legitimately read 1 book from my TBR last month. And honestly, that's what happens when you try to give it mood reader a TBR. Like, I love filming these because they're really fun to pick out, but truly, if I want to read something else, I'm gonna read something else. And that's why I don't really put too much pressure on these to finish them. It's more just like, as Madison Kate puts it, a TBC, a to be considered during the month. But anyway, in September, for my TBR, I wanted to read Fall in the Kiss of Dusk, Project Hail Mary, Quicksilver, Magnolia Parks 3, If We Were Villains, and then The Night Prince. And as you know, I only read The Night Prince. So 5 books remain unread. It didn't happen, it was unsuccessful, but we're not gonna dwell on it for too long because again, I have an entire new TBR to pick with you guys today, and I love doing these. Even if I completely ignore them, it's still a fun time to pick together. And the goal is to read a couple at least during the month. Hopefully in October we can do that as well. I also just went book shopping this past Saturday. That will be a vlog coming soon. So you will see a couple new books potentially. But what I have to say is I now have like 20 books on my physical TBR. So I have a lot to choose from and a lot that I really want to pick up, hopefully this autumn. So anyway, all the yapping being said, our first prompt for my October TBR is, oh my gosh, a book that's been on your physical TBR the longest. That might be a hard one to figure out. There are definitely a couple on here that I got last year. Most of these that I have in front of me are recent enough purchases, but out of all of the books on my physical TBR, I think the 2 earliest ones that I've had for like over a year are Book Lovers by Emily Henry. I can't even remember when I got this book, to be honest. It's been a while. And then Thread of the Fallen by Carrie Maniscalco. This was a book that I bought for my birthday last summer, so June of 2024. So these books have definitely been owned for like 15 plus months, and I'm not quite sure which one I've actually owned the longest, so I guess we can just pick between these 2. But I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm going to pick Throne of the Fallen. Unfortunately, to book lovers, this is inherently a summer book. I mean, look at that cover. It very much gives summer vibes, and it is October, babe, and we're going to be reading Fantasy Girl fall books. And so I just have to pick Throne of the Fallen by Carrie Maniscalco. I wanted to read this book for forever. I've had the highest hopes of this for forever. I think the cover is beautiful. I think the book is going to be so good. Just a fun, spicy, romantic-y time. Maybe this month will be the time that I finally pick it up. So let's hope so, because I really, really want to read this. I think it's going to be so good. I think book 3 is literally being released soon, so I literally need to get to this and read book 2 as well. It is starting a new series, which is a little unfortunate, but when am I ever not starting a new series at this point? So yeah. This is gonna be the first book on our TBR. All right, let's pick prompt 2. I usually like to do 6 of these in one video. Prompt 2 is going to be a book with an orange cover. Okay. Perfect, because fall, autumn, orange, it makes sense, right? On my TBR shelf, I'm seeing a lot of red and pink over there, but I do have some books in front of me. And again, most of these are red, actually. So I think the only orange book that I have physically on my TBR is Unnatural by Mira Sheridan. And yes, this is the sequel to Unwanted that I literally just read last month and just told you about. But this is like very, very orangey and autumn. I mean, obviously the cover, like look at her. She is beautiful. And then the back is also like bright reddish orange. So I think this is like literally perfect for the prompt. And it's also great because, again, I just read book 1 last month. If I read this month, it will finish out the series for me and I can cross it off my series to continue list. So like we're net zeroing with these two. Start a new one, but also complete one at the hopefully same time. This will be a nice palette cleanser. I know I want to pick mostly fantasies, but this seems like the perfect book to read during the season, clearly. And also the main character is literally named Autumn, which is a little bit annoying and pick me, I won't lie, but I have faith because book 1 was so good that this will also be such a banger. So match made in heaven, if you ask me. Okay, book number 3. This prompt says, a book you think will make you feel giddy. This is a prompt that I have received in the past. I don't remember what I picked for those ones in the past, to be honest, but looking at this shelf here, I'm not quite sure if any of these will make me feel like giddy. They all seem like pretty intense fantasy books. Okay, so I'm trying to think of like books here that will not for sure make me sad. Like for example, I know that Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir is really, really funny, but I also know that people cry over this all the time. So I don't think that really fits the category because it's like happy, but also devastating. So thinking on terms of that, books that I don't think are gonna make me cry. Dance of Thieves is an option. I just bought this book last weekend. This is supposed to be just a really chill YA fantasy book, and I think it'll make me feel like really happy and fun. I think it'll be just like a really easy time. So that's option 1. There is also Terror at the Gates by Scarlett St. Clair. I don't know if it's gonna make me like, I don't know how emotional this book is actually. I'm not quite sure, but I saw people reading this and really just having the best time with it. So I think that this will make me feel really happy. Again, just a fun fantasy time. I have Poppy War on my shelf over there. Obviously that one is devastating. I'm not picking that one up for this prompt. The only other option I could think of is possibly The Poisoner by Ivy Ophelia, but this book is supposed to be like dark romance in Victorian England, and the only reason it would make me giddy is because I'm laughing at like the banter between the two of them, because I've heard that not only is the banter good, but they also are like mutually stalking each other, and she also is a poisoner that makes poisons to kill men, I think. So like that's kind of funny, like inherently that's hilarious. So all of these are not really fantastic options, to be honest, but if I was to choose between the 3 of these, which one I really want to pick up the most, I think I'm going to choose Terror at the Gates. This one, I'm totally guessing. It could make me feel very emotional depending on what the content of this book is. Not 100% sure, but again, I've seen people read this in reading vlogs and just have the best time ever with this one. So hopefully it makes me feel goody this month. I always have to give it a little shout out whenever I feature it in videos because like inner pages, front cover, spine, like it's just a beautiful, beautiful book. And yeah, I'm just so excited to read it. The 4th prompt today is, oh, this would have been perfect for the last book. This is a book with a cover that you love. Literally, I adore this cover, so that's kind of funny. But I'll see if I can pick another one. Out of all of them here, I really do like Dance of Thieves. I think that the symmetry in this cover is really, really nice to look at, and I love all the intricate leaf designs also happening. Okay, here's another one. I also grabbed these Infinite Threads. This is the sequel to This Woven Kingdom that I read during the summer sometime. This cover is also really pretty. It's like very pearlescent, and I love the sword detail. It's very gorgeous, but I will just say that I started this book on audiobook a couple of days ago, and I'm not quite sure if I'm feeling the vibes right now to pick this one up. Yeah, I don't know. Like, it's a fine series, but I don't feel very like drawn to it at the minute. The only reason I'd really want to pick this up, to be honest, is to complete another book off my series to finish list. Again, this one would be starting a new series, so counterproductive. You know what? If I'm really talking about like the cover detail itself, I really do like the cover of this book, and it would be continuing a series for me, and I do have the audiobook on Spotify. So I'm gonna put this one on there just to say that if I read it, I will continue that series. Not my top priority by far, but also like if I'm following the prompt exactly, this is one of my favorite covers that I do own. I think it's just beautiful. So I'll put this one on the list. We'll see what happens this month. All right, prompt number 5 is a book published before 2000. Good Lord. I actually don't think I have a book published before 2000 on my physical TBR. These are all very recent releases in the past like decade or so. And to be honest, I really, really want to stick to my physical TBR. It's just not going to work. I could pick a digital book hypothetically, but again, I really want to work on cutting down my physical TBR. So I'm going to prioritize that instead. Let's pick a different prompt for number 5. Okay, so this new prompt says a book set before 1900. Okay, this I can do. This prompt is much more achievable because I'm pretty sure Victorian England takes place before 1900. Isn't that not like the late 1880s, 1890s? Yeah, so the Victorian era was 1830s to 1901. So I think I can confidently put The Poisoner on this list because if it takes place at the same time as Victorian England, it takes place in the late 1800s. So this is a very easy book to put on that list. Perfect for that prompt. And again, I got this book last weekend and I'm so excited to read it. I'm so excited. It's gonna be perfect for the gothic vibes of autumn and October. And like, does the cover not scream dark fantasy, gothic romance. Like, it's perfect for the season. So this is a very easy pick to put on my list. Okay, last prompt together. Let's pick one more for today's video. This last prompt says it's a book from a debut author. Okay, I'm not 100% sure which one of these are debut books. May have to do some researching for this. Okay, from what I can tell, One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig is her debut novel. This is a book I've had on my TBR for so long. I've put it on multiple TBRs. I've always skipped over it, so that's potentially an option. We also have, let me see, Dance of Thieves. Dance of Thieves by Mary E. Pearson. This, unfortunately, is not her debut. She does have a couple of series that she released before this. In fact, she has a very extensive backlog of books, so definitely not her first book. And I'm grabbing a couple more from the shelf. Direbound by Sable Sorensen is an indie published book. I think it was just trad published, but I have the indie published version, so I would bet a lot of money that this is her debut. I was really hoping that City of Gods and Monsters was Kayla Edwards' debut. Unfortunately, I think she has written one more book before this one. I mean, I do have Quicksilver back there, but it's been on so many TBRs recently and I've ignored it every time, so I think that's just a sign that it's not the time for me to read that book right now. Oh, okay, and then lastly, Legendborn by Tracy Dion is her debut novel. So our three options we have here are either Legendborn, Direbound, or One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. And I won't lie, out of all of these, they all in different ways give fantasy girl fall. This is very gothic and atmospheric from what I'm told. This one is werewolf shifters and like a fun romantic time. And then this one is academia secrets, I think, like dark academia magic. Comparing this list to the books that I already have in my TBR, I think that gothic wise, we have that covered with The Prisoner. And then I also think that just general romantasy vibes, we have that covered with Throne of the Fallen. So my little process of elimination here means that I think the best option to choose to give myself the most variety as possible in this TBR is Legendborn by Tracy Dion for my 6th book. I've had this book for a long time now and I've never read it before, but I've heard literally not a single bad review about this book, not a single one. Everybody loves this book. And it also features a POC main character and cast of characters. It's all written by a POC author and I love supporting POC authors. So I think it's gonna be the last one for me to add to my TBR list, which is good because I've been yapping to this camera for way too long. We gotta call it quits at some point, but I'm really happy that my TBR this month is completely made of my physical TBR books, so I can kind of work through this shelf if I end up reading my TBR, that is. We know how well it worked out last month. But just for a very quick recap, my TBR for October is Throne of the Fallen by Carrie Maniscalco, Unnatural by Mia Sheridan, Terror at the Gates by Scarlett St. Clair, These Infinite Threads by Tahira Mafi, The Poisoner by Ivy Ophelia, and lastly, Legendborn by Tracy Dion. I think that honestly, this TBR could definitely find me a 5-star or 2. I'm just so excited to dive into all of these books and I hope you're excited to see them in upcoming vlogs. Let me know which of these titles you'd most like to see in a reading vlog coming soon and which ones you may have already read and what your thoughts are on them. Thank you guys so much for watching this, I'm sure, very, very long video. I appreciate you so much for getting to the end. As always, subscribe. I post reading vlogs and other types of book videos almost every single Thursday. And if you want to watch my most recent video, I will have it right here linked on the screen. I'm gonna see you next week for a really, really fun vlog. So until then, have the most amazing week and I'll see you soon.